Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, July 29th, 5:52 a.m. Central Time as I speak here. December corn futures up 5.5 at 624 and a quarter. November soybeans up 25 cents at 1465 and a half. September Chicago wheat up 10 and 3/4 at 827 and 3/4. September Kansas City wheat up 7.5 at 897 and a quarter. September spring wheat up 3 and 3/4 at 931 and 3/4. If you guys are listening on the podcast, appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like these videos, leave me a comment, give me a crop update, let me know what's going on in your neighborhood. If you'd like some additional information from me, go to my website, www.standardgrain.com. Check out my premium subscription service. Today, guys, I send my premium subscribers a ton of information direct from me every single business day. Morning email goes out about 5:30 a.m. Central. Tons of information in there. Overnight headlines, charts, graphics, weather info. My daily subscriber-only videos are included as part of this. Yesterday, we talked about the definition of recession, which is kind of a gray area. It's not as cut and dry as you might think, and there's going to be a lot of debate about this over the course of the next several months. If you guys are interested in this sort of content, sign up today. $50 a month. Cancel at any time. No other fee, no other obligation. Nobody will try to sell you anything else, I promise. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 includes some tax credits and incentives for the biodiesel industry. Now, just like every member of Congress, I have not read and will never read this bill in its entirety, but it does include some stuff for biodiesel, sustainable aviation fuel, which is all a positive for the markets and the soybean market potentially. This is essentially like a new version of the Build Back Better agenda, which essentially failed. So some people might argue that this is some like additional fuel to the fire in regard to this week's soybean rally. Big picture, the bill includes more than $400 billion in government spending over 10 years. Proponents say the money would be raised through taxation. This was a quote from Larry Schaefer, who is a biofuel and tax expert. He talked to Bio-Based Diesel Daily. There are a number of very positive tax provisions for sustainable aviation fuels, biodiesel, renewable natural gas, hydrogen, carbon sequestration, and other clean fuels and manufacturers of clean fuels. The biodiesel part of the bill extends the biodiesel and renewable diesel blender credits, which had been set to expire at the end of this year. Incentives then transition to a tax credit system based on carbon reduction in 2025. The measure also includes large blender credits for sustainable aviation fuel in 2023 and 2024, among other things. So this is, I think, seen as being a positive for the soybean market, for the soybean oil market. Some analysts talking about, reduced U.S. exports as a result because we're going to be using so much domestically. Maybe we become a net importer of soybean oil at some point in time. We've been building all these new crush plants, or we're in the process of it. There's a dozen new crush plants in the U.S. slated to come online here the next 4 or 5 years. This legislation needs to go through, your normal processes, although it appears as if Democrats will be able to pass this deal without any Republican votes through reconciliation. So this is a potentially friendly deal, big picture and maybe even shorter term. I mean, some of this stuff is 2023 for the bean market, for the soybean oil market, that sort of thing. Now, the other big deal, and probably the bigger deal, is that U.S. weather just remains generally threatening, and we've seen just a massive rally in the soybean market off of those lows that were posted just last Friday. Radar this morning, you got some rain in western Kansas, parts of Oklahoma, parts of Arkansas. This stuff all welcome, certainly in the western part of Kansas, in those areas at least. I know they had some flooding here in like the St. Louis area just recently, and they may catch a little bit more rain out of this. But the next 7 days, it's kind of the same deal. Southern areas a little bit wetter, but most of your traditional areas of the Corn Belt on the drier side, western Corn Belt dry, the plains, central plains, Nebraska, the Dakotas, pretty dry. And you've got this heat that's going to come into the Corn Belt, say like Monday next week for the most part, and it's going to stick around for a while. You're going to see above normal temperatures for at least a week to 10 days, depending on which forecast you look at, but it looks like it's going to last for a while. So your 6 to 10 day, which is August 3rd through the 7th, odds of below normal rainfall, odds of above normal temperatures. Same deal in the 8 to 14, which takes you out to August 11th. So we're talking a pretty threatening forecast here, really almost through the first 2 full weeks of August. Again, as with any sort of weather deal, if you come in Sunday and they throw a bunch of rain in the forecast, that would be a bad thing for the markets. But this all looks pretty convincing right now. The model's in fairly decent agreement, I suppose. Drought measures for U.S. corn and soybean areas were flat on the week. U.S. corn areas experiencing a drought total 29%. That was flat on the week. Soybean areas experiencing a drought total 26. I believe that was also flat on the week. You've still seen an uptick here in the last month. Corn's 29%. It was 23%. Areas experiencing a drought a month ago. Soybeans up to 26. It was 15% a month ago. Spring wheat areas experiencing a drought down to 16% from 19% a month ago. And that number for spring wheat areas was like 99% a year ago. So you've seen a big shift in the moisture situation up north over the last year. The United Nations says that details for safe Ukrainian grain shipments are still being worked out. UN officials are hopeful that shipments could begin as early as today, although crucial details for the safe passage of vessels still being worked out. One UN official said this: "It's not just a matter of whether there is a ship or 2 or 3 available and the port's ready to move out. They need to move out safely, and that means we have to be clear where exactly the channel is." I think he's referring to this mine situation, which could be a problem potentially. And you've still got Russia, who says that, maybe this thing could collapse if they don't get sanction relief, and they haven't gotten any sanction relief. So this is still a fluid situation. USDA reported kind of a mixed bag of export sales yesterday. Old crop and new crop corn sales were soft, and net cancellations of old crop soybeans were noted. New crop sales were really good at 749,000. China, the largest buyer of new crop beans on the week, accounting for 72% of the total. It's around this time of year that China and other global buyers come in for more U.S. New crop beans. Accumulated new crop soybean commitments are the third best on record, behind 2014 and 2012. Wheat sales actually pretty good at 412,000. U.S. gross domestic product, or GDP, declined for a second consecutive quarter, fell at an annualized rate of 0.9% for the second quarter. The trade expected a positive print to the tune of like 0.4 of a percentage point. So you've now got your 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. Does that mean we're in a recession? Depends on who you ask. Consumer spending accounts for nearly 2/3 of economic output. That was actually up 1% annualized. Contractions were noted in inventories, government spending, residential investment, food, beverage, and imports. Still, the job market remains really good, given a historically low unemployment rate of 3.6%. Jobless claims have ticked up slightly in recent weeks, but it's probably not a big enough deal to get super concerned about. The stock market wasn't like super surprised by this by any means. Cattle futures finished the day lower in live cattle and lower in feeder cattle. Also yesterday, there was some additional cash trade reported: 138 in Nebraska, 135 in the South, 140 to 145 in the Western Corn Belt. The U.S. dollar is lower. The S&P 500 is up 32 points ahead of the cash open. The Dow's up 120. Bonds are lower. Precious metals up. Crude oil up $2.22, 98.64 in the September WTI. Have a great weekend, guys. I'll talk to you Monday.